how many downloads of Jim and Bill It's Another Day podcast?
Today, the podcast show has fetched 400 million downloads since its start, and an average of 350,000 downloads per episode, about 3.9 million downloads per week.
Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Well, we're almost to the weekend.
Yes.
I don't know if I say that positively or not, because it always seems how the news starts to get stranger and stranger as we head to the weekend. And then like a bomb hurricane, they drop some, weird stories on it. Or what do they call that weather phenomena?
It's called a bomb cyclone, isn't it? Yeah.
That's it. The one where they had the snow out west.
Yep.
And now there's one or two more forming that may cause blizzard conditions or something.
I never heard of it until I've been around for a few decades, and I've never heard of a bomb cyclone.
I did. The movie 2012. Remember that?
Yeah, that was with Pierce Brosnan, I think. Wasn't it Pierce?
Whoever was in it was based on basically the Mayan calendar and the number 12 and all of that. And supposedly the world was going to come to an end. Well, I guess if you look at the Democrats and current politics, maybe it is coming to an end.
It's true. Before we go any further, I think we should talk about our sponsor, Right Side Coffee. And to start this little commercial off, because they've been waiting patiently all morning
sip some
long.
Coffee while you get that.
It's Juan and Jose and the Border Crossers to sing the jingle.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
What a way to start the program.
Nice guys.
Bill, tell us a little bit about Right Side Coffee. What makes it your choice for that fine coffee taste?
Well, it's got a smooth taste going on. We only have medium and decaf. And the decaf is good, but I don't know. It's just for those that want and I say pleasure because there's an acquired taste of coffee.
Yes, there is.
But this has got a nice, rich, robust flavor to it. When I say robust, it's just got a good full flavor to it.
It is the complete coffee experience.
It smells good, too.
It is the complete coffee experience, right? Is that what you're saying? Yes. And you're saying, well, I want to try that, but I don't know where to buy it. Well, listen, it's very simple. All you have to do is go to rightsideshop.com. rightsideshop.com. It's our storefront, and it's right there. You can see the medium roast and the decaf roast. If you have, for example, blood pressure, issues that you don't want to have that high octane in your system, we got you covered with the decaf. Also, we have the right clothes to wear when you're drinking the coffee, too.
Oh, yeah. We got the Right Side sweatshirts and shirts. We got the Daddy's Home. Yeah. Which is nice. And, it's even more prevalent now because, the left was kind of quiet when they got, I don't want to say the phrase, so when they got slapped.
Yes.
Like the little devils they were.
A couple of Tuesdays ago, yes, I remember.
A couple of Tuesdays ago. Of course, now they're coming out of their holes, and it's not pretty what they're doing, but,
We should point out, and I think this is important, little backstory to how the design for the Daddy's Home T-shirts and cups and sweatshirts were made. Our designer, our graphic designer, very well educated, was on a drunken binge over the weekend, a couple of weekends ago, and in his drunken
stupor, he had a vision.
Yeah, and he put together our Daddy's Home sweatshirt and T-shirt. So you got to see it, folks. Really, you'll want one for Thanksgiving to wear around your liberal friends.
You should get one and wear it at the airport to wish Ellen DeGeneres bon voyage, because she said, "I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm going to the United Kingdom. I'm out of here."
If you want to get kicked out of an NFL football game, this is the shirt to wear. Daddy's Home with the graphic on the front. It'll get you booted from any
rightsideshop.com, and it's also on our It's Another Day website for where we have all the podcasts.
Yes,
the little storefront is up there. I'm going to mention a funny video I saw. I guess it was a wife was talking to her husband. Maybe it was a fake video. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was funny. It was this guy, he's driving along and he's taking her to work. And along the side of the road was a Trump Vance, sign, just a little yard sign. He goes, look at that on the main way. They can't have that. So he pulls out. She goes, no, you're not. And he runs over in his truck the Trump Vance in, and he's laughing as he pulls out into the main lane again. And all of a sudden you hear this clunk, 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 clunk. And he goes, no. And he pulls over and he runs around to the front. And they had taken the sign and taken, a strip of lumber, and they had nailed nails through it. So when he ran it over,
it stuck to the car tires.
he had a flat that he had to change on this. I was going, well, if it's made up, it was funny. If it really happened, it's hilarious.
There were a lot of things that happened. Boy, the left has no tolerance at all for the right. They really don't. They have none at all, which is sad because the left presents itself as being the side of tolerance and acceptance, and it's the woke side, and everybody has a right to be everything they want to be, But yet, when push comes to shove, like during election campaigns, they're the ones who are racing out into people's yards and ripping their political preference signs off their lawn. I don't know of any Trump people who are running onto Harris Waltz, supporter yards and pulling their signs up. But, maybe it happened, but it wasn't as prevalent as the other way around. The big story, and I want to go back to this because...
A lot of big stories.
But Bill, Rob Finnerty, I got to applaud this young man. He hosts a program on Newsmax at 8 o'clock at night. And he is the only one, his show is the only show that is giving us the story of maybe the most important story in the world right now. While we were talking about who could use the men's room and the ladies' room in the Capitol, the rest of the world was talking about how we're on the verge of World War III. For example, in Finland and Sweden, they were handing out pamphlets to all of the population of those countries.
Shelter?
What to do in the case of a nuclear war. This happened this week. They were handing them out this week. Another thing, in Russia right now, they are building portable bomb shelters for the population and for the military. Portable bomb shelters. Go ahead.
Now let me ask you a question, because it used to be, when you were a kid growing up, if you grew up in the 60s and maybe even the early 70s, but most likely the 60s, you sat there and you had fire drills, you had all kinds of drills, and we also knew that, the old duck and cover stuff, and they're sitting there going, if you were out in public, there were signs, the civil defense signs. You could go to this bank building or different buildings where you could go and there was shelter. Do you see any of those signs anymore?
No.
Do you know where you can go for cover?
No.
We are unprotected for our population.
I was watching a show yesterday, and the guy made a great suggestion. If you are afraid that you're an imminent, if you think a nuclear strike is going to happen soon, or if you hear that nuclear weapons have been fired, forget protocol, forget a lot of niceties. If you can get into a sewer system, that sounds crazy, right? Like rainwater, drain, sewer. If you can get underground, do it, because that'll be one of the safest places for you to be.
Yeah, like this house that I have, it's got a sub-basement.
Yeah.
So another, it's like 2 levels down. There, in the basement, there's a trap door. Well, what's that for? Well, you're below the street, and you're surrounded by rock and concrete. Yes, it's an older house that was redone, but the simple fact is, nobody goes down there. There's nothing down there, but I sure as hell would go down there if the bombs were to fly. Yeah, I would go down there because at least I'd have some kind of a chance.
You might want to bring with you a crowbar, a hammer, some water, and maybe some long-lasting food items, and put them in a box or something and bring them down there. Only because if you get down there and the worst thing happens, and above you is a lot of rubble and stuff like that, you're going to need something to help you get out of that.
Well, I've thought about those scenarios, but the point is, if you are forced to go into a shelter like that,
yeah,
what are you going to do when you come out? How long are you going to have to be down there? There's so many questions that have to be answered. I hate to say it, but you might be better off just falling victim to the circumstances, because they're gonna prevail upon it. You're prolonging the inevitable.
Let me give you an update on what's going on right now, in case you haven't been paying attention, or if you've been paying attention to the American news media, other than Rob Finnerty, which, by the way, I would suggest that you watch, because I think he's going to continue doing updates on what's happening with this, the most important story of our lifetime. And yet, American media is just whistling by the cemetery, like no big thing, nothing to see here. Anyway, one day after the first U.S.-made ATACMS strike, that's the missiles that we gave the Ukraine, the missiles that
the
can go.
ATACMS, yeah.
Ukrainians shot British-made Storm Shadow missiles into Russia yesterday. British-made. Now, okay, one day they use our missiles. One day now they've used Britain's missiles into. So they're getting everybody. The Ukraine is getting everybody in NATO actively first person involved in this war.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Zelensky is not Zelensky. The Ukraine is not a UN.
Not a NATO
nation.
It's not a NATO member, but they're going to drag all of NATO into this war.
So does that not make them a quasi NATO nation?
Well, no, they've asked over and over again to be a NATO nation, and they've been denied because they're in a war.
But all of us being dragged into the war kind of gives them.
Yeah,
they're under the umbrella of it, so it doesn't matter.
It's a de facto NATO nation now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
What else? Who else are they going to pull? Are they going to use France's missiles tomorrow, or Germany's missiles today, or who else will they drag into this situation?
I don't know. I think Putin, though, is putting the cards on the table. He's still, giving a glimmer of hope, saying there is a way to divide up the Ukraine, and they would settle for it.
Yeah, but he said, I will only talk to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And people from that administration.
But here's your problem. The Democrats, albeit that they lost, and they lost severely, they're in denial that they didn't lose it, and they're not going to look. They're in a scurry hurry to sit there and appoint judges, do whatever they got to do to sit there and hang on to whatever power that they think that they got. They're not going to let it get to the point to where Trump is in and he can talk to Trump, because Trump effectively doesn't have any power for at least 59 days.
Well, realistically, he has power now. Realistically, even though he's not president, he can say things to Zelensky like, look, I'm not the president right now, but I can tell you this much. On January 20th, we're pulling all of our resources and support from the Ukraine, and you are going to be on your own if you don't follow what I'm telling you right now.
Right, but if the Democrats, if Schumer and Pelosi and all the other clowns have their way, they're going, well, you know what? We can get us into a war.
Well,
and then
you have to ask yourself, but why are they hell-bent to start World War III now? The Democrats.
Well, it's power. Okay, let's just say that could they sit there? Could they Article 25 Biden and just say he's unfit and throw Kamala in right now?
Well, they should have. You and I talked about this, the very first day of the bombing? The very first day we heard about this, you and I said he's got to be pulled, and he has to be pulled now, not
but you
next
got to pull
week.
Kamala with him.
So you turn on the news, and Mike Johnson's talking about the men's room. He's talking about who can you listen. Here's what he said, Mike Johnson.
Let me be unequivocally clear. A man is a man, and a woman is a woman, and a man cannot become a woman. That said, I also believe that's what Scripture teaches, what I just said. But I also believe that we treat everybody with dignity, and so we can do and believe all those things at the same time. And I wanted to make that clear for everybody because there's lots of questions. But that's where I stand. I've stood there my whole life, and those are facts.
I'm sorry. That is who gives a rat's ass. Pardon my French. Excuse my language, but it's the truth. We are on the verge of blowing the world to kingdom come, and this guy stands up. He should be standing up right now. He should be standing up and saying, I'm going to present to Congress today Article 25 impeachment charges against Joe Biden for what he's doing right now in his lame duck 2 months. He's dragging us for no good reason right into the middle of a world war. And he should be impeached not tomorrow, not next week, not after
today.
Yeah, not after some long frigging discussion. It should happen now.
Well, Sarah McBride, the dude, is laughing. You know, that distraction was a planned distraction, and he, she, it, whatever, however McBride identifies, is probably laughing.
I'm sorry. Bill, I don't care. I mean,
neither do I.
I understand how women
distraction.
feel. I understand how women feel. And in all honesty, they had their security. And if I were a woman and I were concerned about that, I would say to my security, stand outside this door, and if somebody who says they're a woman and looks like a man is trying to get in, you stop them until I'm out of here. The other thing is this, Bill. They don't tell you this. They kind of keep this off the. Every single representative and senator has their own bathroom in their own office suite. It's not. It shouldn't even be an issue, but it is. And it is like, who cares? Listen, Johnson said if you're born a male, even if you wear a dress, I'm sorry, you have to use the men's room because you have all the plumbing, period. That's it. It's not a matter of what I think or what I feel. If you have all of the mechanics of a man, then you go to the men's room.
But see, it was meant as a distraction by the Democrats from a Democrat transgender, and they're laughing about it, and we're even talking about it. We're wasting our time on it.
Yeah, I know.
And the distraction, the only way that this wasted time would be any good is if the Republicans do what the Democrats do during the time of distraction, do something that the other side doesn't want to have happen, like impeaching Joe. But here's my problem. Joe in there, he can get us into a war. You impeach him, you got to get Kamala out of there too, because she can get us into a war. And if she gets us into the War Powers Act and everything else, they could actually freeze certain things.
Biden, this is an embarrassment. I'm sorry. People are saying this, and it kind of drives me a little crazy. People say, well, Joe really doesn't know what he's doing. It's somebody else pulling the strings. Yeah, it may be guys like Blinken, who they say is a total incompetent. Everything that Blinken plans, every worldwide decision that he works on, you go with the opposite and you'll be right. Because the guy is always wrong, and he always gets, the wrong scenario. He apparently is a guy with a high IQ and all these, but he doesn't understand how to do the job, or maybe he knows how to do the job and he's doing exactly what he was told to do, drag us into World War III. But Biden yesterday was boarding the airplane after his trip to Peru. And the reporters were screaming at him to just comment on what's going on. This is the most important story in the world. Listen.
For your birthday, will you talk to us, sir? As a gift to the press, will you please talk to us? Mr. President Biden, please, we haven't heard from you all trip. Mr.
they're screaming like frenetic children, and he just walks up the stairs completely. He hears them. Gosh, anybody, and that was over the noise of the jet engine,
which was revving up, so that they would, when he got upstairs, they pulled the plank shut, the door, that thing was running down the runway.
Yeah,
like they were in a hurry to get the hell out of Dodge.
So you have to ask yourself, but see, I do think that Biden, in his fog, in his confusion, there's a certain amount of clear thinking, decision making going on in his. He may be confused to us. He may get lost in a fog, but there's a part of him, and I think it's an evil part of him, that knows exactly what's going on. Knows exactly every time I hear somebody say we sat down with Joe and it was an interesting conversation. Yeah, he's a little older and a little different, but it was, they always seem to say that he's not as confused as he lets us think he is,
Well, he could be a ruse, to sit there and throw us off. And what a beautiful ruse that is, because, he can do things to make you go, well, he's a senile old man. Well, do we really want to go after this guy?
There was a mob boss in New York City. I forgot what family it was he was the mob boss of. But he pretended to have dementia. He walked around in a bathrobe and slippers all day long. They would have his escorts, otherwise known as security, and his henchmen. They would take him for a walk on the sidewalk, and he would start talking to a mailbox, or he looked like he was really just completely out of it. Then he would walk back into his storefront and close the door, and then he would take off his bathrobe and be as clear-thinking, as smart, and as ruthless as anyone ever. And that was the mob boss. He wanted everybody to think that this poor guy was just completely out of it and doesn't know what he's doing, when in reality, he was the brains behind the entire operation. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying Joe's, at that point, but he may be. Maybe he figures that he can deflect some of the incoming flack by pretending to be out of it. But I do think there's a part of Joe Biden that knows exactly what he's doing. Well, for example, yesterday, he gave authorization to use those missiles, and he knew that they were going to come after him with questions and what the heck's going on. And Joe just purposefully walked up those stairs and got into the airplane and didn't say a word. And you have to think about that. You have to think about that when you're doing that. So this guy, now here, let me tell you another consequence of what's going on. Russia launched an intercontinental ballistic missile during an attack on the Ukraine on Thursday. They're ahead of us. So today is Thursday here. This was within hours. They've launched a ICBM missile. Now, apparently it had conventional warheads on it, but they did launch it. And these things can carry nuclear warheads. So I got to tell you, when they launched those ICBMs toward the Ukraine, I guarantee you there was a period of time when those people who were tracking those missiles were saying, uh-oh, what's this? Those are ICBMs. They didn't know whether they had conventional or nuclear on it until they hit. So, the launch was the latest sign of rapidly mounting tensions in the 33-month-old war after Ukraine fired U.S. and British-made missiles at targets inside Russia. This is not going to calm down until somebody like a Trump gets in there and sits down with these people and they start to talk again. Do you know, I think it happened last week, they said, when are you going to talk to President Putin? And Biden said, I have no plans to talk to Putin. He hasn't talked to Putin in almost 3.5 years. This is the guy who is he says that he knows everybody. Remember how Biden, when he first got into office, I know everybody.
He knows everybody.
Yeah. He hasn't talked to Putin in over 3.5 years.
Yeah, he's even said some things about him and Putin. So, Yeah, look, this is Biden's war. You know, it's been going on 3 years.
Yeah.
It's all on him, and it's all staged. And I don't know that we have come to the final act yet, but obviously 50-something days. It's close.
It's 59 today, Bill, by the way. I have a
59.
Yeah.
59 days. It's close. And I wouldn't be surprised that we don't end up in war, and I wouldn't be surprised that look, when Trump won the election, the left media came out and said this is a mandate. He's going to have the popular vote. He's got the popular vote. He's got the electoral votes. It's a mandate. Well, since then, everybody, Trump has been making his picks. The Democrats have been quietly driving in. Well, here's some votes that have been forgotten. They didn't get counted. Well, the count's still going on. Oh, we got more trucks coming in with the other ballots, the provincial ballots, and so they're bringing those all in. Now all of a sudden they're saying, well, Trump didn't win the popular vote. Kamala is right there nipping at his tail and is going to end up winning the popular vote.
That's
well,
not
how can that be?
No,
I know it's not going to happen, but they are sitting there. They're doing this thing to change the perception of the
That's
public.
exactly the word you used is the key word, perception. They want the masses to think, nah, it wasn't the mandate that Trump says it was.
And that's the media that is sitting there, that is in the control of the powers that be. And this goes on with every government. They have the media, they have the propaganda machine. They're going to have you believe that they're the good guys, and the other guys are the bad guys. That's what it's all about. And so if you're on the side of the good guys or the bad guys, doesn't make you a good guy or a bad guy. It's but you're on a side, and unfortunately, it is not democracy that's at work or play here. This is something far more evil. What I'm getting my point to is that a lot can happen in 59 days.
Man, isn't that the truth?
So
Yeah.
Biden could end up being taken out or stepping down as president. Kamala could be in, because the other part of that scenario, supposedly they did a survey, and the overwhelming majority of Democrats are saying Kamala's got to run in 28. I'm going like, she couldn't win now. She couldn't hold a thought. She's going to get better in 4 years?
Oh, I know. I know.
This is a deep state agenda, and they're going, we didn't get the ball over the line this time, so we're going to redo everything, and city by city, state by state,
Yeah.
we're going to upset the apple cart.
People may say, well, Trump got 51% and she got 49%. It wasn't a mandate. No. It was tens of millions of votes, okay? It would don't get goofy here. We're a country of 330 million people, So if Trump won by 2% of that, it's a big chunk of people that she has not got. He got a mandate whether you like it or not. And by the way, I'm one of these guys who still thinks that the left was doing their damnedest to steal this one too. It probably was more votes than the votes that they actually got.
Well, that's true. Look, they're still trying to take Pennsylvania, because I think they believe that they can, even though every card has been turned against them. They're holding out hope because they have. I saw the videos after everything was all done and it was called. Mm-hmm. Well, looky here. Here comes 2 Ryder trucks that have ballots in it.
Well, one of the things, Bill, that I hope Trump does in his administration is that they completely change the voting rules effective in 2028. I hope they say, look, okay, we have a one-day election. We have the results on that one day. We use paper ballots. We don't use machines. We don't do it the way. Understand something, folks. I don't know whether you're aware of this, especially if you're young, but all of my life, it was one day. The results back in the 50s when I was a little boy, in the 60s when I was a teenager, we had presidential elections, and in one day we knew who the president was going to be.
Right.
What happened? Then we were talking about, hey, we'll get computers involved. It'll be even faster. No, we got computers involved, and now, like Bill said, we're dragging some elections out. This is the third week after the election.
Well, they're sitting here. They're trying to figure out how they can overturn certain things. Joe is quickly appointing Democrat judges. They're doing everything they can to lock in whatever power that they can, but we're looking ahead to getting our appointments in place and getting our cabinet in order. The Democrats are already looking at 2028 and how they're going to do it, and women are the key, and they still want to go on that abortion thing, and it is going to be about putting a woman in the White House. And they're looking at Kamala. And where do we focus? Or do we sit there and say, we've got to have two teams? We've already got to start gearing up for 4 years from now, the after Trump, and we have to do the pre-Trump administration.
You said something which was spot on. They're already working on 2028. Now,
yes.
the Republicans have a tendency to, well, it's over. We can pause for a second. I don't think the Democrats take a day off. I think that they start planning for the next election almost from the time they get the results from the last.
Okay, did we win by a landslide?
I would say, considering everything, we did.
Okay, so you got that going on, Matt Gaetz, and the ruling that happened yesterday, but all of a sudden, somebody with the ethics committee, something got leaked somehow.
Well, they say it was somebody in Trump's transition.
All right, so Trump, when he first came in, he was given a team, and he didn't know, and so he had a lot of Judases in his camp.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying this to put a diss on Trump, but he put a team together. He's got a Judas in the camp. So if you got one, you got more. In his team that theoretically he's had control of, he's got somebody that's a backstabber. And, the Democrats have people everywhere.
You know who Elon Musk says it is.
Yeah, but you can't go by just that. You're going to have
proof
positive, but I would say he's probably 99.9% right.
Yeah. A couple of nights ago at Mar-a-Lago, Elon Musk got into a loud shouting match with Boris Epstein, or Epstein. I think it's pronounced Epstein. He's been involved with Trump since 2015, I believe. But and he's been on TV, and he's always very positive about the president. But here's what I'm thinking, Bill. The richest man in the world, the guy who has a company that catches spaceships when they're landing, a guy who builds maybe the best electric car in the world, and probably has already on the boards a design for a different powered car that will be even better, because that's how this guy thinks. He's not satisfied with what he's got here. He's already thinking years ahead. But he's also got resources, immense capital resources. He probably has the best intelligence and security people in the world working for him 24/7, which says to me that if he turns around to one of his aides and says, I want to know who the leak is in this organization, that in a relatively short period of time, he'll have that leak's name. And so if he gets up into a shouting match and accuses Boris Epstein of leaking, there's probably a good chance that he's spot on. Maybe not, but that's my opinion. There is somebody in that organization who is trusted by the president who has that information who's leaking it. And it's got to be stopped and plugged. And I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
You would just, I think, referencing this. The ethics committee decided we don't have enough authority to release this report on Matt Gaetz, so we're not going to release it. Suddenly, out of the clear blue sky, right, out of nowhere, the New York Times says that they were handed over the transom, by some leaker, a copy of a document, not the whole document from what I understand, but enough of it to smear Matt Gaetz' name and to give him no chance to defend himself. See, that's the thing that's wrong with all of this stuff, that anybody can make up anything about anybody. Understand something. Matt Gaetz is a good-looking guy with a decent amount of money, with a great job and a terrific national reputation. He's got women falling all over him, I'm sure, or had anyway.
His ex-girlfriend sat there and said he would be an excellent attorney general.
Yeah.
Now, if anybody would have a reason to throw him under the bus, if there were any reason at all, it would be her.
Bill, in the environment we live in,
whether she dumped him or he dumped her,
in the environment that you and I live in now, you cannot get involved with extramarital sexual affairs, even if it's consensual. Because if you get into a situation where somebody can use that against you, they will. They will take something which is consensual, something which may have been, dare I say, 40 years ago, kind of the norm. Guys will be guys, women will be women. They get together, and no big deal. Suddenly, because of these creeps in Washington, these hypocritical creeps, because, with all due respect, most of them are out there doing the same thing they're accusing Matt Gaetz of. Maybe worse.
If I were in politics and running for office, we all got our skeletons. I can't think of any, but, we've all got them. And one thing that I would do is I would have one person on the team or a team of people that would sit there and say, okay, these are the reporters I'm going to encounter. I want the goods on all of them. These are the politicians that I'm going to encounter. I want the goods in all of them. I'll keep it in my pocket. I'm not going to bring that out unless they sit there and start hitting me with crap. Then I'm going to pick up a pocket full of it and throw it right back out of them and say, well, since you want to ask a lot of questions, let's ask a few questions. Oh, I'm asking all the questions. No, it's a two-way conversation. You fired your shot, let me fire my shot and put them on trial.
Yeah, but the sad part about it is the one who's going to be damaged the most is the guy like the Matt Gaetz who's up for something important. The reporter, who gives a damn? The reporter may be a pervert, may be a creep. Who cares? He's not running for anything.
But see, here's what Democrats do. They don't not only bring you into it, they bring your family into it. They need to have a taste of their own medicine. Give it back to them. If you're going to play this way, if you're going to sit down and wallow in the mud, you may as well get down in the mud with the pigs and give them a taste of their own medicine. If you're going to dirty this thing, dirty it.
Well, gets me, though, folks. In all honesty, we've had some wonderful people be terrific public servants who, if you went into their closets, you'd find that people make mistakes because they're people. People make mistakes because they're fallible. People make a lot. There's nobody on this planet who was ever perfect except for Jesus, all right? And that's it. Everybody else has got something to hide. They've done something along the way they're not proud of. And the fact of the matter is, in this environment, this political environment we're in right now, the media and the politicians, they shake out these different things and bring them out of the closet and say, see, he did this. Look at the kind of guy he is. When Bill said it a few minutes ago, when that woman who was testifying, that ex-girlfriend who testified in that ethics hearing, she said Matt Gaetz will be an excellent attorney general. He's a terrific mind, a terrific legal mind, a good guy. All right? Hello? But that's not what the New York Times wants you to hear. The New York Times wants you to think that Matt Gaetz is creeping around back alleys looking to rape somebody, that Matt Gaetz is a pervert. Matt Gaetz is not the kind of man you want. Let's talk about the kind of men we've had in the Attorney General's office. Look at Merrick Garland, right? Let's get serious for a second. Forget his personal nonsense. Look what he's done professionally. He's taken that office of Attorney General and he's politicized it. He's made it a lawfare tool. He's allowed it to become an attack dog for this administration. That's not the purpose of the DOJ or the Attorney General's office, but that creep did it anyway. Do you want him in there? But he's in there. That's him. I mean, we have people in government who have got much worse things to hide. Hell, we got a deputy healthcare guy. What's his name? Rachel Levine.
Mm-hmm.
He is proud to walk around in women's clothes, and he does it at work. They say nowadays, see, that's acceptable nowadays because, well, we live in an environment that is welcoming to transgender people. Transgender people, you got to acknowledge that this is what they want to be. Mm-hmm. Well, why is it throughout history it wasn't normal? I'm just saying. All of a sudden we're enlightened now? We're enlightened now. Okay. Okay. But for centuries, you didn't do that. All of my life, it was if somebody did that, they would be taken away. Now, okay, that you're saying you're on the left, and you're saying we live in an enlightened times. These are enlightened times. We don't think that way anymore, and you must be in a Neanderthal. Well, maybe you're just being too accepting of this situation. But anyway, if you can have Rachel Levine be appointed to a position that has to be voted on by the Senate, then you can have Matt Gaetz, the attack dog, who dare I say this, is more normal than Rachel Levine in my estimation. Well,
I would agree with you on that. I mean, he is more normal. But then again, normal is not the norm anymore.
Well, that's what I was saying. Yeah, it is not the norm anymore. We live in an environment. But see, we live in a hypocritical environment. That's what I'm really saying. Mm-hmm. We're saying, on one hand, we're saying, oh, yeah, Rachel Levine can go into work in women's clothes. That's okay. He can call himself a woman. He can go into the women's restroom. He can do all these things because he says it's cool for him to do it. He feels more comfortable that way. That's okay, and we'll appoint him. But Matt Gaetz, who's denying all of these claims, by the way, who denies all of these accusations, and by the way, the Department of Justice investigated and said, we got nothing. We're not going to pursue it. We're not even going to.
Yeah, but you can take nothing and take the little nuanced skirts of it and make that little speck of, okay, there's nothing here, but just you can take something and sensationalize it. And that's what they're doing, and that's what's so wrong because it's the law of public, or it's the rule of public opinion. People out there, they're quick to judge. And you know what?
Let's be honest, okay? They're doing this for one reason and one reason only, that Matt Gaetz will be an intensive pit bull attorney general who will go after the deep state.
What are they afraid of?
That's exactly right.
And maybe we need to start dropping little tidbits of information on these people that we know. We know your dirty secret. So that
and Gaetz does too. That's what they're afraid of.
Well, maybe it's time to start leaking little bits of information, because that's going to do one of two things. It's going to get the media on them, or it's going to shut the whole damn clam up. And that's fine too, because what they're doing is wrong. They're taking things that can be construed, but do not tell the truth or show the whole picture.
Well, all I can tell you, folks, listen, you want to wear a dress and call yourself a woman, that's your business. I don't care. I really don't care. What I do care is when you're being hypocritical about it. When you say it's okay for Rachel Levine, formerly Richard Levine, to dress like a woman and hang around the Capitol, that's fine. All right? But you don't turn around and say that Matt Gaetz, who denies everything, is an ogre and should be banished from ever holding office in government again. That's nonsense. You're saying one lifestyle is okay, and the other guy who says he never did it, he denies it, and has investigations who've said there's nothing to see here. You're going after him? That's hypocritical. Enough of this nonsense. Let the president, and by the way, President Trump, I give him so much credit. They said to him, well, have you changed your mind on appointing Matt Gaetz as Attorney General? Have you had second thoughts? And President Trump answered with one word, no. No. That was the end of that. Next question. No. He's staying with this man. He's standing by this man. Don't think for a second Trump hasn't done a background check on these guys. He knew what they were going to be up against. Now they're trying to go after Pete Hegseth.
They're going after every Trump appointee is bad. Even Tulsi Gabbard is bad news. They're all bad news.
Tulsi Gabbard, now they're saying, well, she was the best friend of Meghan McCain. That's John McCain's daughter, and she's a liberal, and she was an anti-Trumper. No, she's normal. She's a normal person. She has friends who have different opinions and different thoughts, and she can live with that. There was
She's a godmother of McCain's daughter.
Yeah, there was a time in our society when you could be friends with somebody who didn't think like you politically, but you were still their friend. You just didn't agree with them. Now they want you to attack each other.
John McCain, was he in collusion with the deep state? I don't know. The man is gone. Let's, why that even comes up now, who knows?
Well, I do think that, by the way, I think that the good news is that Meghan McCain supports Tulsi Gabbard in her, position too. So
and that's a good sign. Yeah. And maybe we ought to leave it at that.
You see where Liz Cheney's old position, Harriet Hagerman has it now, and Harriet Hagerman supports Matt Gaetz. Listen.
I've worked with Matt Gaetz for the last 2 years on the Judiciary Committee and the Weaponization Committee. He's an incredible, brilliant legal mind, and he is someone who I think would go in and stir up the DOJ, which is what we need. We have uncovered a substantial amount of information of how the Department of Justice and the FBI have been weaponized against the American public, and Matt Gaetz has been instrumental in exposing that and trying to hold people accountable for the decisions that have been made. And I think that's really why they're attacking him and trying to derail this nomination, because they recognize that he's someone who's going to go into the Department of Justice and actually do what needs to be done, which is clean out a lot of the dead wood, if you will, and also root out the corruption that we know has been going on. What we saw with the Hunter Biden laptop, what we saw in terms of how they treated Hunter Biden, the amount of money that they gifted to him by refusing to prosecute him for the tax evasion that he engaged in with the money that he was receiving from foreign countries. Matt Gaetz is somebody who's going to expose this, and I think that that's why they're attacking him.
Harriet Hagerman, in her thoughts on Matt Gaetz, they cornered Lindsey Graham in the hallway as he was walking down the hallway, the media did, and asked him about his thoughts on Gaetz. Listen.
Nobody should be disqualified because of a media report.
It's an investigation. Investigated by the department. He wants to leave. Bipartisan ethics investigation.
And they didn't proceed forward.
Yeah, they said, well, they're going to investigate it. They did, and Gaetz. What happened is Graham was asked a question.
Right.
He answered the question and started to walk away. And a reporter said, "Well, they investigated him." And Graham turned around and said, "Yeah," and they didn't proceed forward, meaning they dropped it. So knock it off. So there will be obstacles in the hearings. One of them is Susan Collins from Maine. She is a ditz, not as much of a ditz as she wants you to think she is. She is calculated. I think Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, who is somebody who cannot be counted on, will go against Gaetz. But in the long run, when push comes to shove, Gaetz is going to be the Attorney General because, at the very least, he's going to be a recess appointment.
Well, see, the Democrats say they want to go against the recess appointment and stop that. How they're going to do that, I don't know, but they say that they're going to do it. So, there's a lot of weird stuff that's going to happen between now and Inauguration Day, 59 days.
Somebody made a great example yesterday. I'm going to be paraphrasing it. There was a Japanese lieutenant at the end of World War II who was fighting on an island, out in the Pacific, and it was, I guess, he and a handful of men. I guess the other guys he probably died or whatever. I don't know what happened to him, but they were not informed that Japan had surrendered and the war was over. And they manned their post for 29 more years, right? 29 more years they were literally fighting the war against us. The war was over. Finally, 29 years later, somebody got the point across, hey, the war is over, Lieutenant. It has been over for a couple of decades now, almost 3 decades now, so maybe you should throw in the towel. So there's a picture of this lieutenant, this Japanese lieutenant who is middle-aged now, surrendering his sword. And they use that parallel to say to the Democrats, they don't know, many of them don't realize that they lost, that the game is over. They're still acting. You just said a little while ago they're going to try to stop a recess appointment. Good luck with that, because the recess appointment will be made when the majority is Republican and on both sides of the aisle, okay? So, I mean, on the Senate and the House, both sides of the Capitol. So, they don't want to relinquish the power. They still want you to think that they are the guys in charge. The Chuck Schumer's a couple of days ago. You probably saw the video. He's on the Senate floor saying, "We recognize the results of last Tuesday's election, but we want to remind the president that at every opportunity, it is our plan, our goal to reach across the aisle, to work in a bipartisan fashion to get things done here in the Capitol." He hasn't reached across any aisle in the past 10 years, this guy. Suddenly he's reminding the president to don't think that we don't have any more power, is essentially what he was saying. We're still here, and we still mean something, so work with us,
What do they say about a person that never looks you in the eye?
Well, not to be trusted.
Okay. If you go and look at videos of Schumer, and by the way, he stands in front of a microphone like he's some big, powerful guy.
Yeah.
And he's really just a little weasel. And I'm not saying that to be mean. He's just a mole. And, you'll see him wandering around, looking down. He'll wander up to something. If it's something that's negative to him, he just kind of turns and walks away. I forget the rodent or whatever that's like that. But,
yeah.
He doesn't ever look you in the eye. There was a debate about Trump had with him one time, and Trump is sitting there arguing with him and looking right at him, and Schumer is not focused at Trump, but he's looking down at the ground because he can't look you in the eye. He is not a trustworthy, honest guy.
Yeah,
he sticks to his guns.
You're right. Yeah.
But there is something very dark, evil, and deceitful about this guy.
Do you remember, what amazes me is these guys on the left are always saying that, Trump fostered an insurrection on January 20th of 2021, January 6th, rather, of 2021. But do you remember, I guess a few months before that, when Chuckles Schumer was in front of the Supreme Court building and was literally threatening Kavanaugh and Gorsuch? You'll regret that. He was screaming on the steps of the Supreme Court, "We're coming for you," essentially. I mean, he was literally, it sounded to me like it was a physical threat against justices of the Supreme Court. No one ever considers that as an insurrection. No one ever says that's terrible. That's kind of forgotten because, that was the left. That was Chuck Schumer. I got to play a couple of cuts for you before we run out of time. Along those lines, there's a commentator on CNN named Abby Phillips, and she's a lefty, has been, but she was up at Harvard, and they were speaking about the media after the election, and it seems like she's finally maybe realizing that they're talking to each other and not listening to what's really going on in the world. Listen, this is Abby Phillips.
I have observed that elites increasingly talk only to each other and come to believe that because there is consensus among them, that consensus is shared broadly. And there are not enough voices that are confident enough to disagree and to present alternatives. And we as a society need to find better ways to uplift divergent voices. Otherwise, we will be victims of groupthink. And there is an activist class. I think this is particularly acute in the Democratic Party right now. There is an activist class in the Democratic Party that is multiracial, multi-ethnic. It is diverse, but it's an activist class. And so because of that, they're not able to see outside of that. And Republicans had the same problem before Trump. Right. The heritage foundations of the world, et cetera, right? They had the same issue, fundamental issue, but Trump kind of broke them out of it. Democrats are in that place now where they have to break out of it. And I think it is a real problem. It's not as simple as wokeness or whatever. It's about people who are being incentivized to think about issues in a particular way, and usually it's the light switch is either on or off. Right. It's no nuance. There's no nuance, right? Because they're activists. Like, they're paid to kind of be in this lane. And if you're somewhere in between, then what's the point? But most people are not in one lane or another. And there needs to be a greater understanding of that. There needs to be more courage among people to speak out and to voice divergent opinions. Otherwise, I think it's a real issue. And it's not just the Ivy League. I think it's just elitism in general. That the Ivy League is the pinnacle of it.
But we see that with the urban-rural divide,
yes,
right?
It trickles down. Yeah.
That's CNN's Abby Phillips of the Harvard Kennedy School's Institute of Politics. I was thinking about, while this was running, I was thinking, she's up there talking about what they have to do and the mistakes the left has made. But she's doing it at the Kennedy School, which is at Harvard, to like-minded people. And I can't think of a time, maybe there has been, when the Kennedy School has had conservatives speak in front of their panel. They probably have, and I just am not aware of it, but I can't think of any. I can't think of when they've sat down. I know they've had, like, John Kerry spoke there and other people, all these leftists, but and why is it that we still give such deference to these schools nowadays? Why is it that Harvard, Brown, Princeton, Columbia, all these different, Penn, all these Ivy League schools, Princeton, they all have we give them such reverence. Do they really deserve it anymore? I mean, are they?
Did they ever deserve it?
Well, there was something to be said that Harvard was the first real higher education school in our country, historically. It goes way back.
Right.
But, I mean, if you can get a bachelor's degree at a state school or a bachelor's degree at a private school, a small private school, why is it if it's an accredited bachelor's degree, meaning they all have to pass the same requirements to get it, why is it any less of a degree if you went to, Podunk University as opposed to Harvard? I mean, you're still just getting a bachelor's degree.
It's what you consider the worth of your bachelor's degree. Like, you have a bachelor's degree and I do. Mm-hmm. They're both the same, right? But I charge more for mine. So if you really care about yourself and your prestige, you'll pay more. It's a show of wealth, and that's all it is. It's crap.
one other thing I wanted to play for you before we wrap this one up, because the show is getting away from us. We've had a lot of things to talk about today, and it's the time that we're living in right now, folks. There's so much to talk about. Bill and I could do a 3-hour show with ease, with no commercials. We could do it. But I wanted to play a cut from Tom Homan. Tom Homan is the new guy who's going to be the border czar. He's going to be the guy who's going to fix the problems that was created by this administration. And he's pulling no punches. We're hearing almost on a daily basis threats from the left, people like the governor of Massachusetts, Healy, and we're hearing Pritzker from Illinois. He's telling us what he's going. You're going to have to go through me to get to these people. Yeah, that's what Pritzker said. And you got guys like Gavin Newsom out in California promising to do everything he can to interfere. And you have Michelle Wu, the Boston mayor, who's telling everybody, you're not going to get our people. Well, listen to what, I want to play this. This is Tom Homan. He was on Rob Finnerty's show last night. Listen to what he said.
You've got the governor of Massachusetts, Maura Healey, the mayor up there, this woman, Michelle Wu. Again, that's the largest city in Massachusetts. They're vowing to not help you, but they're also saying they will work against you. And they've got a real issue up there in the Bay State. How do you work through that or around that?
Well, two things. Number one, I find out it's insulting that any elected mayor or governor wants to push back on what we're trying to do. I just explained the president wants to focus on national security threats and public safety threats. What elected official wants public safety threats to remain in the communities? Their number one responsibility is to protect those communities. So shame on them for that. But I'll tell you this, they don't have to help us. But they need to get the hell out of the way because we're coming, we're going to do it. Which means if I got to send twice as many resources to that sanctuary city, twice as many agents, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I've been saying for the last days that they need to study the law. They cannot help, but don't impede us and don't cross certain lines. There's a statute under Title 8 United States Code 1324 that talks about harboring and concealing an illegal alien, knowingly harboring and concealing an illegal alien from ICE. They need to read that statute and become familiar with it because if they cross that line, there will be consequences. So, look, we're prepared to take action, but I hope they come to the table and realize we are prioritizing the worst of the worst first. Help us do that. Help yourself make your community safer. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
God bless him. He says, get out of the way, get the hell out of the way. We're going to do it. If I have to send double the amount of people to a neighborhood to get the job done, I will. But it's going to get done. But I was thinking as I was playing, Bill, the people who should be should pay for what they've done are the leaders that we have right now. The people who knowingly allowed these people to come into this country. I'm talking about the Mayorkas. I'm talking about the Harrises and the Bidens of the world who said, "Come on in. The water's fine," to all these people.
Doors open, yeah.
And why is it that they don't have to pay a price for doing this? I mean, Mayorkas, he looked to the camera on numerous occasions. Well, I'll give you an example. Mayorkas turned to the camera and with a straight face said this.
Is our border secure?
Our border is secure. Border is secure because we are maximizing our resources to deliver the most effective results to our border with the most extraordinary workforce in the world.
And then he said this.
The border is not open. It has not been open, and it will not be open subsequent to May 11th.
Oh, see? I mean, the guy, he looks to the camera, he has a microphone in front of his face, and he just lies.
Yeah. I'll tell you what you want to hear.
Yep. Exactly.
Listen carefully.
Right. Yeah. The border's secure. In the meantime, you got everybody and their brother coming across with their knapsack, and you got little kids being coyotes or dragging them into the country so they can be made into sex slaves. You know what I heard they're doing with them now, Bill? I heard, God, this is terrible. Yeah, they've been used for sex slaves and stuff like that, but apparently now there's a market for their organs, for their body parts. And
I think that's been going on for a long time. There's a market for body parts.
But they're using little kids, Bill. They're using little kids. This is obscene, and I point to Biden. We know about that Lincoln Riley case and how she was murdered by an illegal. That poor little girl she should be alive today. But you know what we did? We flew the killer from New York down to where she lives, basically.
Yeah,
on our
Biden
dime.
Harris paid for that. Yeah. So I mean, they flew the killer down there. There was a story a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if we talked about it or not. I had sent it to you. I'm paraphrasing now, but basically, it was somebody that went in for some kind of surgery, and they were dead or close to dead, but they were revived. And then the doctor came back and said, no, let him go because
we have a client for these body parts.
We have a client for their body parts.
Yeah.
And then there were certain people that said, no, we can't do that. And so the person lived, but I'm sitting there going, that was more important. And there are people in positions where your life and your rights have no value to them. And that's just, that person should lose their medical license.
One of the first things that comes to mind with me is I think, I'm not going to make myself an organ donor if that's the case. If I have on my license that I'm an organ donor and I get into a bad car accident and I'm comatose and people think, he's not going to make it through the night. And then I get so out of it that maybe I'm just a heartbeat away from being on the other side. And some rambunctious young doctor looks at me and says, well, we can use this guy's liver and his heart maybe, for Joe Blow. Let's just take it now while it's viable. I don't want that, so I don't become an organ donor. I think a lot of people...
they'll keep you alive so they can harvest your organs or check to see if they're able to harvest your organs. I know both sides of the coin on that. I'm not an organ donor. Oh, Bill, you can't be that way. But it is those kind of reasons why, that I see that going on.
Well, that is we live in tough times right now, folks. But going back to the first story we talked about at the top of the show, if we don't solve this World War III thing that's bubbling up in the Ukraine, all the other stories we've talked about today are irrelevant, insignificant, unimportant, because we won't be here to talk about it. And by the way, that's not being dramatic or that's being honest, which is not being the case with a lot of mainstream media. Did you hear, by the way, a big story we didn't talk about, Bill? Comcast has decided to sell off all of their cable news operations. MSNBC, CNBC, they're packaging the whole thing up and they're getting rid of them. They're not going to be connected anymore to NBC News on their television division. So, and why is that, you may ask? Well, it's because, for example, they got the election totally and unequivocally wrong. And many of the shows lost over half of their audience. In total, MSNBC lost half of its audience in one fell swoop. And what does that mean, Bill? It means they lost money.
Yeah. News break. What was it that we did to Russia the other day that the long-range missiles of ours got used? What's the other kind of missile that we've talked about that shouldn't be used at all?
The ICBMs?
Russia strikes Ukrainian defense plant in...
I said that.
Okay.
We read the story already.
Okay.
About ICBMs?
Yeah, because I saw it just came up on my screen again, so it just came up.
Yeah, I mentioned that when we were talking about ICBMs, about missiles initially. I mentioned the fact that now Russia's used them. ICBMs. And the thing is, Bill, I mentioned that they can have a nuclear warhead on them, and you don't know whether they do or not until they land.
Right. Yeah, they can. You don't know what they are, but yeah, they're using them. So I guess my point is that you've got that. We ratcheted up the war with the long-range missiles. Now they just ratcheted it up a notch with the ICBMs. What's the next ratchet in the wrench?
Well, every time they fire an ICBM now, you're not going to know whether it's a conventional or a nuclear until it hits. What's the next one, Bill? They're going to hit Kyiv. He's been holding back big time on hitting Kyiv. He doesn't want to hit Kyiv because it's historic. Many of them share the same churches, and many of the churches there are ancient and have history, and Putin doesn't want to lose that. Mm-hmm. But I think he's at a point right now where he's being pushed into a corner. So the next thing they're going to do is they're going to hit the big cities in Ukraine. A lot of innocent people will die. And it will be because this feeble son of a bee in the White House allowed this comedian, this guy who this Zelensky. I look at Zelensky. I'm sorry. Every time I see him, I think about the scene I saw. You can see it on YouTube where the guy does a skit where he plays the piano with his penis. I'm not kidding you. That's not an exaggeration. That is a routine he does. He's not graphic about it. It's television, but the implication is he's playing the piano with his schlong, okay? And this is the guy who's running the Ukraine and has the free world, the peace of the free world right now in the palm of his hand. You know, this is the clown that we have right now. We have a comedian in the Ukraine who is dragging us into World War III thanks to that feeble SOB in the White House right now. It's sad. It's sad because, you know, we don't understand because the media is not talking about it, but we don't realize that we are a heartbeat away from a major nuclear strike in this country. It may not be a total strike. It may not take out the whole country, but one strike is one strike too many. You know, if they drop a bomb on the Aleutian Islands just to show us they got them, that would be a major catastrophe. Anyway,
well, I think it's all by degree. You know, it was our missiles, it was the other country's missiles, and now, you know, Russia's cranked it up to the ICBMs. You know what? We're going to have bombers going over. What's going to be flown next?
You know what's scary, Bill? It's escalated on a daily basis since it started.
Yeah, and we got 59 days of escalation to go. I mean, you know, there's one-upmanship. When is it going to end?
We're talking.
Well, it's not when is it going to end. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I think the left, their Hail Mary is war. And that's just it. And I don't even know that Schumer and Pelosi really understand what nuclear weapons will do.
Do you think they care?
No.
See, I there's a part of me that says that these people know, well, we have bunkers here and our families will be protected and there's a secure system in place to protect the Congress and the Senate so that if something were to happen, we'll be okay. You know, the public be damned. We'll be okay. These are selfish, power-hungry people who don't give a damn about us.
No, they don't. One thing I was going to throw in I thought was interesting is Dr. Oz for his pick for the head of health and stuff. You got Fetterman out there saying he's going, hey, you know what? If the guy is for helping Medicare and Medicaid, I'm voting for the dude.
And that turned every Democrat head 180 degrees. Like, what? What did he say? Fetterman, who, by the way, in case you don't remember, was the opponent of Dr. Oz. They had a real fierce battle going on in Pennsylvania for that Senate seat. And here Fetterman is saying, hey, look at it. If he's for these two things, he's got my vote.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It goes to my old saying. You know, some people sit there and say, for democracy, you got to vote blue. For democracy, you got to vote red. Democracy doesn't run red or blue. It runs red, white, and blue. Yeah. And in this one particular case, with him doing that, he's saying, no, it's for the good of the people. And that is a good vote in my mind.
Do you remember when Fetterman was, when the campaign was in full swing, not his campaign, I mean, the most recent presidential campaign, they interviewed Fetterman, and Fetterman said, and it turned a lot of heads. He said, "Hey, Pennsylvania's got a real thing for Trump. It's a real issue in Pennsylvania." Fetterman said this.
Yeah.
Fetterman has a terrific relationship going with the people of Pennsylvania. I think Fetterman knows that if he does some kind of an alliance of sorts with Trump, it's going to be to his betterment down the road.
Well, you got to look at Fetterman. Now, do I agree with any of his politics? Well, I'll agree with that. But no, I don't agree with him. I don't even think he really won it. And he might even know in his heart of hearts that he didn't win it. But I will tell you this about the guy. His parents are conservatives.
Well,
he grew up.
Would it surprise you? He's the kind of guy that wouldn't surprise me if down the road he pulls a party switch.
He could.
You have to understand, folks. He's from a steelworking town, and look at all those steel workers who voted for Trump. So I'm just saying, if it wouldn't surprise me if down the road Fetterman said, "No, I think I'm going to be a Democrat."
Yeah, you don't have to love everybody in your party, but you have to sit there and, like I said, democracy doesn't run blue. It doesn't run red. It runs red, white, and blue. It is, the true voice of the people.
It's interesting. So, he started wearing suits for a little bit when he became senator.
He's not a suit guy.
Now he's back into his floppy shorts and his and his sweatshirt. That's it. He wears it everywhere. If you have him as a guest on your TV show, he'll come out in his floppy shorts and his sweatshirt.
Well, I mean, in reality, I kind of booed and boo-hooed it, but I sat there and said, you know what? Just be yourself. I've always said that. Be yourself, and that's the guy. That's the guy. I'm not endorsing the guy in no way, but, the fact that he is looking at Oz going, no, I agree with him, and he's got my vote. That's the way. Now, it doesn't mean he is voting for him. He's saying he's got my vote if that's what he believes in, because I'm voting for the dude. Now we'll see if he's a man of his word.
Yeah. Hey, listen, before we hang this show up, a reminder to please try Right Side Coffee, medium roast and decaf roast. You'll find it in our Right Side Shop storefront. RightSideShop.com is where you find it. RightSideShop.com. We also have Need Daddy's Home sweatshirts designed by our talented graphic designers who are on staff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, toiling over hot, drawing tables to come up with the fantastic drawings that they come up with. Also, we have cups. You like cups? Mm-hmm. Baseball caps. You can wear it all to Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, you wear a sweatshirt and have your cup for your apple cider and put that on the table, and maybe wear one of our baseball caps, our Daddy's Home sweatshirts, and maybe have a cup of Right Side coffee and offer it to your liberal friend, your liberal cousin across the table and see how that goes. So anyway, you can. I almost forgot. They're tuning their guitars. All right, Juan, Jose, and the Border Crossers one more time.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Marvelous. And that's Right Side. I love that jingle. It's kind of a catchy tune.
I think you wrote it, didn't you?
No, I didn't write it. That was done by Juan and Jose.
Oh, okay. Well, they had a lot of thought in that.
They sure did. It was, they've gotten really good at singing it. Because they've had so many days now to do it. I mean, they've been over and over again. I think that's like the only song they sing. Actually, it's just,
really well. They're coming out with a compilation of their greatest hit.
Yeah, exactly. It's a short album. Actually, it's one song played 12 times. You'll love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, you have anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, there's a lot of things to talk about, but there's going to be a lot more things by the end of the day. So tomorrow we will have fresh poop to fertilize the
interesting way
quad.
of saying. Yeah, interesting way of putting it. Have a great
Manure.
day, my friend. Yes. Have a great day. I'm done on my side, Bill. You have the last word.
The last words are hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
Trump won and you know it.
my mental fitness. What I do now.
Patriots fill stadiums, not circles in an empty room. Twitter and the FBI, one day won't deny. Trump won and you know it. Trump won and you know it. The fake news will never show it, 'cause it's true. Trump won and you know it. The thing about truth, time is always gonna tell.
Votes in Fulton County were counted more than once.
I bet he took New York and carried California as well. He's done it twice before, and he's gonna win again for the third time in 2024. Trump won and you know it. Trump won and you know it. Fox News won't even show it. It's true. Trump won and you know it. Trump won and you know it. If there's a line, they're gonna show it. It's true. Trump won and you know it. I know it, you know it, we know it, they know it. Everybody knows Trump won. I know it, you know it, we know it, they know it. Everybody knows Trump won. I know it, you know it, we know it, they know it. Everybody knows Trump won.
This is CRN America.